producer and host for Earth is a Witness. We have once again a very special guest, photographer, Ted Grambeau, who joins us from Australia. And Ted is a legendary surf photographer, adventure surf photographer. But even more than that, he also does, action adventure, some really, really interesting work. If you look at Ted's work, which we have the privilege of seeing today, you will see that everything that he does it beautifully with a lot of passion, a lot of philosophy. There's a purpose to his work, and it's all about adventures in light. And his talk today is called Beyond the Surf. And the reason it's called Beyond the Surf is because, yes, he's a surf photographer, but there's so much more he brings to this conversation and his work to all of us. So we're really lucky. And you're going to see, obviously, some beautiful surf photos and techniques and whatnot, but we're going to go beyond surf photography, and it's going to be epic. Welcome, Ted, to Earth is a Witness, our show. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having us. Yeah. So it's a privilege and an honor.
Great. And obviously, welcome to our artist in residence, another legend here, Art Wolfe. Art, always good to see you. Thanks again for being here.
Oh, I can't wait to see Ted's work. It's a real joy to see this great variety coming into our living rooms every week.
Great. So with that, I want to once again welcome all our audiences. We have had really good turnout, both live and also, people watching it as a replay. More than 10,000 people watch this, every time, every week, which is great. So I want to thank all of you, our fans, to kind of follow along, give us feedback, encourage us. It's all blood, sweat, and tears for us just to do it every week. And it's great. So with that, Ted, can't wait, my friend, to see your work and the stories behind it and what it all means to all of us. If you want to go and share.
Okay.
Let me know if you need any help or tips for sharing. I know, there you go. You nailed it.
There we go. All
Beyond
that training has come into fruition. Yeah, the reason I've termed it Beyond the Surf is because surf has been my initial impetus in photography, and all as I knew when I started photography is that I wanted to travel, and I had a passion for surf, and logically combined those two elements. So it started off as almost wholly and solely a fanaticism in surf photography, but what I found along the way that it, like any journey in life, it literally is a journey, and it just exposed me to a whole lot of other aspects in life and really shaped who I am today. That's obviously through travel and photography and the ability to share those experiences. So I'll click into the first image, I think.
There you go. We can see it.
There we go. It's magic. Excuse me if I'm technically inept sometime. I haven't had the tequila, but I should have one next time maybe. This is, I won't say typical of what I do, but this is, as an editorial surf photographer, this is about capturing a drama of a really significant swell, and as part of my forte, I guess I specialize in more remote and out of the way regions. So this place is Nias off the island of Sumatra, and it was one of the first places where surfers, it was like the holy grail of travel photography, travel surfers, a perfect wave in the most remote place. Cost of living was nothing to live there, but it had all the luxuries of malaria and everything else that goes with it. This was about 2 years ago, this shot, and was one of the best swells ever that hit that location, but it's quite significant because early on in my first extreme travel to that location, I had probably one of the most profound experiences in my life. It was, like I say, one of my first trips, and it was when a fellow traveler got sick and we didn't know what it was, whether it was malaria or it was cholera, typhoid. There was a whole list of things. And the fact that there were several other Westerners there, but I soon realized that no one was really going to put themselves out as this guy was deteriorating in health. And people were sort of going, well, in 2 weeks, I'll be going out. I can give him a hand then. And the guy was literally virtually dying. And I ended up upending the trip early and taking the guy out. He couldn't walk. I had to drag his body for about a week. And it really shaped how I think about travel and being prepared and, you know, all the aspects of travel. You really have to be relying on yourself, not other people. It doesn't matter where they come from. So it was quite a profound impact on the rest of my travels for the rest of my life, to be honest. So, but this swell was incredible. We're sitting in little dinghies, little wooden boats, had to go out through this big shore break on a huge swell. Trees were washing through the villages, and, you know, it was pretty exciting all around. So
Ted, can I ask you a question? Did you
Absolutely.
know that, I mean, obviously locations like Sumatra would have a season for the bigger swells and the storms that would come through. But having said that, just the uncertainty of world weather, would you go there and just kind of wait it out for weeks, or what's the story?
Yeah, well, no, that's a really relevant question, because in the first case, when I first went there, it was literally the first case of going there during the season and waiting for the swells to arrive. Virtually blind, I guess you would say. Now with technology, what my strength is, I guess, is reading swells from around the world. There's a lot of information, and literally I can hit a swell in Morocco or Indonesia or Tahiti. There's a swell yesterday in Tahiti that would have been really nice to go to. And now there's almost a group of professional surfers that will literally chase those swells around the world to some of the most remote places as part of their career. So this had an incredible lineup of talent on this day. This is a Brazilian surfer, Lucas Silveiro. So the talent was...
The economy of these surfers that are willing to fly anywhere on the earth, are they being backed up by commercial, surfboard manufacturers? Or, I mean, how are they making a living from that? Briefly, just, I'm very curious.
To be honest, the really, significant money in surfing is in the top competitive guys that do the world series of competitions. And then it drops off to those that just are literally hardcore passionate. And if they get their airfare paid and a little bit of money to make a living, that's sort of makes up the bulk of these guys. They will do anything to ride big surf. And they're certainly not in the income bracket that, say, Kelly Slater, Mick Fanning, John, or someone like that, who are the top professional surfers. Huge drop off. And it's the same in any sport. It drops off if you're not in the top 5 in the world. You're sort of really just pursuing that passion. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Beautiful image. And you're a good man, Ted, for saving a life.
Well, it was definitely more rewarding. And that's the reason I went back. I had promised myself I would go back when the conditions were at their very best one day. I'd been back multiple times, but that's the relevance of that issue. Is I went back on one of the greatest swells ever. Well, it was the greatest swell ever 2 years ago. This is in Tahiti, which could easily be considered the holy grail of places to take surf images. Obviously, watercolor is amazing, but there's a couple of waves that have a few elements that make it justifiably the best place in the world to take photos. This is a place at the end of the island called, or literally the end of this road, called Chopu. And it gets enormous surf on a really shallow reef, but it also has the advantage of having a host of local boat drivers that are just super skilled, and you literally can put your life in their hands with some sort of a surety that you're going to finish the shoot in one piece. And this is a size of a swell. It was a tow swell where it's too big to actually paddle. It's a guy from Australia, Mark Matthews. And to get a perspective that normal people would not have, that perspective from the beach or something, is really what this is all about. So like any picture, it's trying to tell a lot of things in one moment, which obviously people will react to. So I think that's an element I'll talk about later, but it has an emotional impact when you look at a photo and you have some sort of reaction to it. I think that's a very critical element in any photography. So,
Hey, Ted,
yeah, like I say, first light. But sorry.
No, can I just request you to also look at the camera so that
At
our
the camera,
audience
yeah.
of
Sorry, I
10,000
keep looking at, yeah.
can see your beautiful eyes as a reminder. Yeah.
You can see
Great.
one pterygium and another eye on the other side, yeah.
Parimal, can you even see me? Is my camera on?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay.
I can see
Okay,
you.
so
Fine.
I can see you, Art. That's...
okay.
You
So
look
I will
great,
stop.
Art.
I'm going to stop scratching things now.
Yeah, so the other really beautiful aspect about this, obviously the watercolor and the first light in the morning is absolutely stunning. The first 15 minutes, if you can get a set wave where someone catches it in that time, it's the money shot effectively, but it's pretty spectacular. All right, we'll see where we go. This was shot some time ago. It was shot on film, actually, and it's shot underneath the wave. So I have a water housing. The camera's inside the water housing, which obviously I need for when swimming. My friend makes these water housings, Aquatech, and this has got a fisheye lens. Swimming, so it's almost like from a fisher's perspective of a surfer as a wave breaks over you. So he's actually surfing across the top of the wave, doing what's called a floater. He's just going to drop free fall from that position. It's in Fiji at a place called Tavarua. Again, it's like one of these locations that's, it's a mecca for surfers of all types. It's a really good quality wave, and it's a little island that people go out onto. There's two little islands mainly, Namotu and Tavarua. But it's trying to find different perspectives in any aspect of photography to make something different and unique, and obviously a little bit precarious when you've got to swim under a breaking wave and wait for it to break on you to get that shot. So this was quite fortunate that all the timing came together, and like I say, it was filmed. So definitely when you've only got 36 shots back in the good old days and you're hoping your exposures are correct for like being in a foreign environment, but being underwater, it's basically you're drawing on all the things you've learned in your photography and all your knowledge. And it's exciting being in the water, it's really, I guess it's akin to being able to shoot like football and a run around on the field at the same time. So yeah, it's a bit of a thrill for the photographer. So
Ted, you are of the age, though younger than me, that when you say that this was shot with film, I would imagine younger photographers that only have shot with digital don't even respond to that or understand the ramifications of the statement. It is so inordinately more difficult to have shot with film what people can do today.
Absolutely, I totally concur on that, and I think it is good that there is a bit of a resurgence in some younger photographers are adopting some film practices, but the fact that you can't look in the back of the camera for a start, you go away on a shoot, you would know better than anyone, Art, for a couple of weeks and you've got hundreds of rolls of film and you don't know until it's processed if your exposures were spot on or if if there was a mechanical failure. So you really had to have technique down. You had to, and that's why photography has boomed, I think, since, because there's much more leeway now. To the learning curve is much quicker just looking in the back of the camera, obviously.
Yeah,
36 shots, you swim out to a reef. They're pretty valuable shots. Every shot's really valuable. And so obviously having your technique, and also with, this is shot probably on Fuji Velvia, I would think, and it was, slide film was absolutely amazing, but very little tolerance in exposure latitude, probably not much more than a third of a stop. If you get beyond that, you're sort of getting into challenging areas for reproduction. So now with a raw file on digital, wow, you can just sort of hit the ball out there and you're going to get it in the hole. It's like, pretty interesting. So this is Poncho Sullivan, anyway, a surfer from Hawaii. He was an amazing surfer and really nice guy. This is significant in my own personal photographic journey. Again, it's a location that I love to go beyond where the normal surf is, although I'll go to Tahiti and Hawaii and South Africa and Bali, but finding new locations in extreme locations with different cultures and communities and landscapes is really what really excites me. This is in Liberia, but it's not just the location that I attach a lot of feeling to this shot. It's because I went to college at RMIT in Melbourne and learned photography in a commercial sense. I learned really good craft practices, how to, technically take exposures and learn all the aspects of that you need to know in a technical sense. And you sort of go out from there and you think you know it all. But I had the good fortune to go and work in New York for a little while and worked with an amazing photographer, Bert Glynn, who was chairman of Magnum at the time. And I knew nothing about real photojournalism. And after I became exposed to his world, I was literally, I had to relearn my whole photography about what really is important in an image. And it was almost truth and integrity were the basis of their photos. So all the great Magnum photographers like Sebastião Salgado, Cartier-Bresson, their photos were real, but they were art, and they were working with people. So it's like these elements that are all really challenging, and they would not interfere with the subject or the process at the time. So it was I was really inspired by that aspect and adapted it a lot for my editorial work that I was doing in surfing. But it literally changed the way I thought about photography and who I then thought were really the greatest of photographers that I was inspired by. So this was in Liberia, which was after the end of the conflict. And it's just, I love photographing people and sort of have learned some different techniques, I guess, that I enjoy people. I enjoy being out of my comfort zone. Like when I say that, I mean, possibly the minority in obviously in African nations and things like that, which can be quite intimidating. But like I say, I feel really confident around people. And one of my techniques that I'd like to do would be, because we had a film crew there filming this surf trip, would be they would rush up and they'd film people, and that you could see that people were quite uncomfortable, going like, what's going on? As anybody is, if you stick a camera straight in their face and just start taking photos of them. So normally I would just shoot, if I've seen someone I wanted to shoot, I would shoot everything but them. And then eventually they're like, well, why don't you shoot me? Like, oh yeah, sure, all right. Like, and then it's sort of like this, okay, yeah, I'll just shoot you guys working, and it's like a passive way to introduce yourself into that environment, very non-threatening for them. So it's I've also had a trip to Cuba once where there was a street that I just fell in love with, Escobar Street in Havana, and I just wanted to stay there all day, which I did for literally a week. I'd go back there. But rather, some tourists would like to give people money to take their photo, and I don't really think that's, it's a nice gesture, but I don't think it's for a professional photographer. It's not you can't just photograph everyone and give them money. So I'd go and buy these pizzas and then just hand out slices of pizzas to the different people and sort of endear myself to the community. And then they were welcoming me into the house and, come and take a photo of my mother, come over here and take my place. And, so it's just a way of sort of breaking down barriers, I guess, and treating people how you'd like them to treat you.
Yeah.
They were just building the bridge so we could actually leave the country at that stage. So it was
I like the depth of field in that, it's kind of going in with the leading lines. Yeah.
Yeah. This was pre-drones. It was just a helicopter, and it's on the Gold Coast, a surfer called Bead Durbridge. But what I like about this is it's an area that's photographed, one of the most photographed surfing areas in the world, Kira, and trying to find a shot that is a different perspective or a different take on something is, I think, what as photographers we all aspire to do. And obviously drones have opened up that world, and they've gone crazy with some amazing perspectives that people are coming up with. But hiring a helicopter was sort of just so much fun, and doing it that way. And just when all the elements align in its graphic shape and, the position of the chopper as it sort of leans over. I really like this for its different perspective more than anything. As I said, like basically traveling to extreme places, and you sort of build up almost a reputation with different people that's what you do. So you get invited to go to even more extreme places. And a friend of mine, Martin Daly, is one of the great surf explorers. He owns several vessels that explore the world for surf. And he invited us, and this was a non-surf trip. This is in the Asmat region of Irian Jaya. And just being invited to an area that is like virtually very few people would have the privilege to get to go and see was almost irresistible for me. Well, it was irresistible. And, to see people that are really not far out of the Stone Age in genuinely in their element was quite remarkable. It's literally not that far from Australia, but it's literally centuries ago in its world. Even the little outboards didn't have, even the little canoes didn't have outboards. We were like 70 kilometers up a river. And yeah, it was just amazing that there's another world right next door, at the moment. It's hard to believe.
Mm.
Beautiful image. Well, when were you there, Ted?
This would be probably about 10 years ago. I'm only guessing because I'm terrible with dates. Sorry, Art. But
yeah, me too.
Everything's 10 years to me. So.
Yeah, or 12.
For most Australians in particular, their first trip overseas is Bali, and I was no exception. And it's an amazing place, Bali. It's like I say, it's well traveled, but it's still rich in its culture, and the people are amazingly placid people, predominantly Hindu in nature. But I found this beauty in their culture, in their dancing in particular. This is a Lagoon Dance, and I'd always make sure I'd sort of photograph something to do with the dancing or ceremonies wherever I was. And it wasn't for a long time until I went through this file, and then I found this file, and I noticed that she had a tear just in her left eye. And then I realized how emotional the ceremony and dance actually were. So it's elevated the significance of this photo to me straight away. It just, one of the most important elements to me in a photo is emotion. It makes it powerful. And when I say emotion, it can be a landscape that's emotional. It can be a portrait. It can be an action shot. Anything that elicits a reaction to that image, like we've all been affected by single images in our life that are almost tattooed on our brain of like the napalm girl or the Eddie Adams with the gun at the head, or, images that just resonate throughout history. That's what I mean by emotional. They're powerful. And it's really challenging these days to have that power when we are saturated by so many images. But I think there's a few elements that sort of make things stand out. And when those images have an integrity and an honesty to them, and they're not just a replication of a photo that we've seen before, they actually have an originality and hence an integrity. So it gives much more value to it. It's like an original work of art in a sense. And I think art, you'll fully know what I'm talking about on this. It's a really interesting time in photography now, that people are after instant gratification for their photographic efforts. But sometimes you have to, sorry?
Yeah, I mean, it is the bane of photography to me that people just unashamedly say they've got their bucket list and they literally will go out and replicate what's been done about 10,000 times before. And maybe they've got better equipment, but it's a pretty hollow victory.
Absolutely. And I think it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Why are there really, we have influences, but the influences to me are the Sebastião Salgados, are the people like yourself, are the people, Cartier-Bresson, or whether it's Helmut Newton or anyone. They probably don't have many followers at all on Instagram, but they're my influences. They're the ones who have done their photographic journey, and all their influences have come to fruition in their work. Now, anyone can replicate technique. I can go and look on Instagram and do a fashion shot, do a action, whatever it is. That's just showing you have good technique, and that's fine. I think unless people realize, unless they do their own journey, and if your photo is not way far from your influences, you haven't gone on a journey. You're taking your influences photo. So there's no integrity in that. And I think first you learn your craft, you learn about your, technical skills, you develop them, you embrace all the influences in life, particularly photographers. I soak up everyone's influence. But then if I'm not going on my journey after those influences, that's, almost a cardinal sin, I think. It's like my photography wouldn't have any integrity. And I'll talk about this at the end, because there's some shots where I feel I've sort of arrived at a point. And those images to me, I'm really passionate about because they're rich in my integrity of my journey. So I don't blame young people for not understanding that, because they haven't come up through, a photographic background where if you went to art school, the first thing you do is learn about great artists. Whereas at the moment, people are introduced to photography, and literally Instagram is their sort of reference point, and it's all about being rewarded for likes. Sorry.
All right.
Parimal? Okay, I thought you were going to say something. Yeah, so I think it's a really subject you could talk all day on. So I'll go on to the next one. Anyway, I like the tear on her eye.
I do too.
Again, in surf photography, you're looking for all the elements to come together. And like I say, the fact, if you can get an exclusivity on those elements and those moments, that's when it's a gold medal. And I would gather a couple of surfers, look at the weather maps. I sort of became, I guess, well respected for being able to read the weather maps pretty well. So top surfers would often jump on board if I asked them to go somewhere extreme and have faith in me. And this was like a place, Ponape in Micronesia. Again, it was like, I called around the world. This guy, Shane Dorian's from Hawaii. I had 2 Australians. We literally just jumped on a flight. It's a whole series of flights and literally gambling on the swell's going to arrive when I said from all my information that I researched was going to happen. And we had 3 guys surfing the most perfect surf, literally to themselves.
Wow.
In beautiful, perfect reef, which is really unusual to get surfed by yourself. But believe me, in this day and age, surfing's so popular. And then photographically, it was really good, and it was sunny and offshore. And I'm thinking, how can this possibly get better? And then all of a sudden, a big black storm came in the background, and I've gone, it just got better because, you know, that black sky and sun hitting the subject, amazing watercolor, and, you know, the world's best surfers. It was probably not the biggest surf I've ever photographed or whatever, but the whole package of the trip was just a highlight. You know, it was like all the guys on it, it's one of the best trips they've ever been on, and they've been on hundreds of trips. And so all those elements come together very rarely.
And where did you say this was?
This is in Micronesia, Ponape, a little island. So it's in between Guam and Hawaii, effectively. You've got Truk, and then Ponape, or Chuk, I think it's called, Ponape and Cosray. And I'd been there early on when I used to have lots of frequent flyer points. I think it was Continental had the exclusivity on that route. And I sort of cashed in my frequent flyer points to do the island hop. And she said, oh, you can fly direct, or you can do the stopover on every island. And I said, oh, I'll do the stopover on every island. She's looking at me like, why would you do that? And I'm going, well, I want to check them out, obviously.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's just having that, that inquisitive knowledge to sort of look and see. And then years later, I ended up back there when it was perfect. So
this is the same surfer that you photographed in Tahiti.
No, this is a different surfer. They all look the same, I know.
Oh, okay.
He's probably the world's most famous big wave rider. This guy is Shane Dorian. He's up there. There's a handful of guys, but he's one of the professional big wave surfers that is looked after comfortably just to surf big waves when he chooses,
Wow.
which is pretty amazing.
So Ted, just a quick time check. It's 7:35. So
Okay, what do we got?
about 5-10 minutes. So I know
Okay,
you might have epic shots towards the end of your.
Okay, I'll speed it up. I talk too much. This is from a commercial job where I went to Iceland. We had a heated wetsuit. I said, well, the company had a heated wetsuit, and I said, I know where I want to shoot this. And it was a bit of a leap of faith for them to go to Iceland from Australia. So that was for Rip Curl with a heated wetsuit, and an amazing, telling all the story in one photo is challenging, but that sort of says that that's cold, and it's hard to photograph cold sometimes unless you have snow or ice. More from Liberia, just loving that interaction with locals, to be able to get a different perspective that this young kid had. Seen I was photographing his sister, same thing. She had a chicken. So he disappeared, runs back, and he's got 2 chickens. So it's sort of guaranteed that he was going to get the next photo.
Yeah.
This is from Namibia. Again, a lot of my work's editorial. Trying to tell a story of a journey is what's really. Yeah, you got to connect all the dots effectively. I can get great surf shots, but if they don't tell the story of a journey, it doesn't mean anything. I could stay at home and get those great surf shots. this one was just too good a scene not to get the boys out of the car and say, look, go for a walk. I'm going to get some shots because it is just a stunning landscape in Namibia.
It is beautiful. This particular shot, Ted, on our Instagram collection on Earth as a Witness got the most likes, even more than the surf photos.
It's interesting, Instagram, because they obviously have algorithms as to, if I put up a shot and it's not surf, it doesn't get any likes.
Yeah.
So I'll have to have a talk to Mr. Instagram about that one. This is another epic shot from, this is probably one of the greatest waves ever ridden in Tahiti.
Wow.
And it's just that moment of truth where actually he came unstuck, but he was doing incredibly well. Nathan Fletcher.
Wow.
Again, pretty exciting being in a boat when you're going up that wave, going like, hope the driver knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the timing is so critical.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I tell you, there's a lot of screaming and yelling going on and everyone's freaking out. It's seriously like standing in front of a train going, yeah, just get the shot. The captain of the boat saying, yeah, he's French, he's French Tahitian, George. And he's like, George, there's a big wave coming. He's like, get the shot. And smoking the cigarette and driving the boat. Yeah, okay. Amazing people. I love the Tahitians. This was, again, telling the story from a journey. This is world champion surfer Mick Fanning, and he was on a film trip where we were taking him outside his comfort zone. So along with a filmmaker, Taylor Steele, there was a series of little projects where Mick didn't know where he was going, and we just ended up putting him in locations. So the one photo I really needed was Mick and the gorilla, and it was hard to get because the gorilla's not as cooperative as Mick, and Mick was tentative with the gorilla, obviously. So, but it sort of told the story in one image. So, and it's pretty cool, like, you know.
It's not an image you would see from a surf photographer.
No, but it's like everything's a journey and all these things knit together. So my journey is photography now, and surf is my carrot to take me places.
Yeah.
This was another one where it was, it's not Carnival in Brazil, but it was a show about Carnival, but it was on a bike trip where I put my hand up for an adventure to ride a motorcycle. My friend said, "You want to come for a ride?" I said, okay. But I couldn't ride a bike. I didn't have a bike. I didn't have any money, but it all worked out. And I rode from Los Angeles to the bottom of Patagonia. And it's one of my favorite images from along the way. So being up for adventures sort of definitely has pluses.
Ooh.
This is sort of moving on, and it's probably, we're going to go into this at some stage into the future, but all my work is involved with water. So literally taking those elements that I've learned from one aspect and applying them to other aspects like portraiture or fashion gives me an advantage to have potential unique content. And it's almost like once you use those influences and those techniques from early on, the world's your oyster to where you end up, because you won't end up anywhere near anyone else when you do this. If you go on yourself, if you test, shoot, experiment, absorb influences, learn, do it again and again. So there's no shortcut. It's like you just have to do the journey if you're going to create your own unique content that has integrity, has its own look. Kids worry about a style. The first thing they always ask, I'm working on my style. You don't have a style. It evolves. The style will hit you on the head later and you go, that's your style. But if you're trying to do a style, you're trying to do someone else's style. That's what you're doing. My recommendation would be absorb your influences, hone your skills, go on your journey, and then you'll find where you end up. And it'll be different. It'll be amazing.
Good
I
salient
got to ask Art.
advice.
Go ahead, Art.
I said it. I think that's very salient advice. Not to be so caught up with trying to create a style. It just comes naturally, but with time, effort, sweat, you know, and
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and you don't even know you have a style until you get to a stage where you've got to present a body of work, whether that's a book or an exhibition or something like that. And even I don't see my own style, but when people start telling you have a style, that's good. That's like, all right, I'm getting there. But believe me, having an app that puts a color cast on your thing is not a style. That's not a style.
That's called an Instagram preset. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fine and it's a shortcut, but the more you learn and experiment and make mistakes, your learning comes from mistakes. That's there's not one shoot I don't go out on and not learn something. Fortunately,
I got to say to the audience and Art, Ted has a whole collection of the underwater portraits. This is just one as an example. We're going to have you back, Ted, just to talk about the other collections that you have. But this is just a beautiful image. And I did use this image in our Instagram collection that people can check out. It's just very beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Parimal. Yeah, I do have a body of work, and that's what I say. It sort of takes all that journey takes you in different places. And the next image too is similar but different. It's like ironically, I travel around the world quite a bit doing my photography, but these are taken from the beach that's probably 50 meters away from my home on the Gold Coast. And it's using the techniques that I'd sort of evolved over the years through my surfing and being immersed in the ocean, and sort of noticing certain times you would get something where something went wrong, but you ended up with a beautiful image. You're going, wow, that was pretty cool. And then pursuing that to actually go out and try seeing what made that image. So that's what I mean about sort of that learning process of that journey of experimenting and testing. And now I've been working on this series for about 10 years now, and I'm really getting happy with where it's going. And obviously once you introduce things to Instagram and that, people are exposed to it, and the technique's not difficult, but I feel confident that my work has a lot of richness in its integrity and honesty, because this is a result of my journey. And the results are totally different every time I shoot. I can't get close to controlling some of the elements. So it's really, I know when the work will sort of produce something, and I have to just get up, sunrise. It's basically what the day will present as to what I will get. It's shot with a water housing at absolute sea level. I call this work sea level. And I also relate it a little bit to climate change, which helps me give purpose for something which I think is important. This is almost invisible when I'm shooting it. Not this particular one, but some of the glints of water and reflections. But it's nonetheless real. It's like photojournalism. It's not done in post-production. This is in camera. So it's invisible but real. And I relate that closely to climate change, which I think has the same issues. It's invisible but real, and it's why it doesn't get the immediate action that maybe it deserves. But this is something I will sort of continue on with, and really enjoy producing this type of work. How are we going there, Parimal?
Oh, it's great. No, I think this is your last image. I think you told me, right?
This is the last image. Yeah, I can talk on this one for a while, but
I love it. I just, anything that reminds me of an impressionist painting, that soft focus, the pastel colors. And you have to get up early to catch that light coming up over the ocean. You're on the east coast of Australia, so this is early morning. And you're right. It's like, I often say, I'm going out and hope I'm present enough to accept what's given to me. And in many ways, that's what you're as well saying, because you can't control anything there.
Yeah.
other than your location, your perspective and the technique. But
absolutely, and it's like a culmination of all the technique brought into one. And it like I say, it's easy to mimic. Someone can use the same technique, go out and do the same. But for me, it's very personal that I have done that journey and arrived at this place by experimenting with different lenses for like years now, and getting the results that I start to like. But it's also a result of, as a photographer, and as everyone out there would know, that you start to see life in terms of light and shape and tone and texture and color, and or even trying to interpret it into black and white and things like that. So I think we do start to see life differently in a lot of ways,
Well, and I've got a lot of art history as a background to me. And it's interesting that almost to the person, artists became more abstract, more free as they aged. When they're young people, much more literal in what they get. But as they age, I feel the very same with my own work, is there's a freedom that comes with that. And the work becomes more and more abstract as I progress in my life.
It's really exciting. I think that's a very few careers would people. I think I have the ability, as you would too, to take your finest work. It's maybe not the same as some of the other work that you're doing before or whatever, but all that knowledge comes together, and you end up with some really. You're an open book. It's amazing journey. So.
Well, you're no longer trying to build a career. You got a career, and that frees you up to be much more experimentative and accepting the direction that everything is kind of guiding you to. And I love this work. I think it's a brilliant piece of work to end on. And I've loved everyone that we've seen tonight. But this one and the reflection of the clouds in that curvature of the water, I mean, it's so beautifully it's so beautifully exhibited. I love it. Just
awesome.
Love it.
Ted and Art.
Huge compliment. I fully love that. Thank you.
No, this is beautiful. Art, we're going to have Ted back again just to focus on this particular one. This collection is called Sea Level, The Art of Awareness. Gotta say, when Ted and I, we have had multiple conversations in the last 2 weeks, probably total 5-6 hours easy, and I learned so much about this particular collection, the Sea Level, and then the other one is the underwater portraits. And we have put together this collection on Instagram for people to know, but we're going to have Ted back. And I got to say, when I first saw this, my first reaction was, how is this shot? It took me a while to realize that this is not some gimmick in a bucket, a colored bucket with some colors, and you can do it in your house. But this is actually at sea level, shot at sunrise, and there's a whole collection around this. It's just absolutely magical. So Ted, we're going to have you back again sometime soon to talk about your underwater portraits and this particular collection, the Sea Level, to see what nature and sea has presented to you every time you have been out there, as a whole body of work itself. Just focus on that. That would be epic.
I'd love to. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to end on this note. I got to say, obviously this, Ted, you walked through a lot of, as Art said, salient features about what the journey is, what photography is, what it is not, what you have learned along the way. The one highlight I feel that I got out of this in some ways, is your statement just a while back, which is when I said, we started introducing you as a adventure surf photographer. And then towards the end, you said, you're not a surf photographer, you're a photographer. Surf is the character you played, one of the characters you played, and that shows the evolution of your journey. And I also want to say, when I asked you kind of, what's your kind of key takeaway in all this, and you said something very interesting, which was about, it's not what you possess, it's the experiences you have, in the end that defines you. So if you want to elaborate on that note, and we'll end on that.
Absolutely. I think photography's enriched my life because it's a medium for sharing experiences. And literally, when you strip everything back in the world, you know, we're here for a very short time, and all as we go away with are experiences. It doesn't matter how many houses or how much land or how many Lamborghinis or whatever material possessions you have, they're all irrelevant. You can't pack them up unless you've got a pyramid, you know. Even those, there's still a few left behind.
Yeah.
It's really experiences, and the experiences are based on emotions, and emotions are translated through photos to me. But you know, experiences come from family, friends, travel, you know, everything we do in life. That's what makes us rich. And
Yeah.
I think that's a sort of a very evening, you know, point in society that makes us all on equal footing. So
Great.
savor those experiences, everyone.
With that, Ted, I want to thank you again. We enjoyed this. Thanks again for all your generosity and your time. It was enjoyable. We're going to have you back soon. Art, I want to thank you as well for always insightful comments and the banter. And to all our audiences for giving us your time and for encouraging us to continue doing this on this journey, on our own little journey for Earth is a Witness. Don't forget to follow and check out Ted's collection on Instagram, Earth is a Witness. Also his website, tedgrambeau.com. He has a beautiful website, very killer logo, and just incredible bodies of work as well. And please do share this with your friends and family on both Facebook and Instagram, this particular video. With that, thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.